This morning, a group called the HistoryMakers is assembling the largest African-American oral history archive this country has ever seen. In this prestigious group, the dean of Purdue's graduate school, who, as News 18 discovers, has not only made history inside the classroom, but outside as well.
There are those who will say, I bring people together.
You probably know this woman, the late, great Maya Angelou. And though he was just a little-known state senator from Illinois when he spoke with HistoryMakers, you definitely know this man by now.
And my mother really was somebody who empathized so deeply or identified so greatly with the civil rights movement.
Now the group wants you to know Mark J.T. Smith, dean of Purdue's graduate school. Smith wouldn't call himself a history maker, so when the group asked him to tell his story, he was floored.
I knew nothing at all about the HistoryMakers program, and when I was approached, I was honestly quite flattered because my name being associated with history was just kind of mind-boggling to me.
More than just his accomplishments, the HistoryMakers wants you to know his story. Smith is a tremendously accomplished computer and electrical engineer. He's authored more than 40 papers and 4 textbooks. But until you sit down with Mark J.T. Smith, until you hear his story, you wouldn't know something like this.
I was inspired by my cousin. He was also a tinkerer by nature, but he had a workshop in his basement, an electronics workshop. And I remember going down there and seeing him work with all these electronic gadgets, and he had radios and so forth. I just thought this was the neatest thing in the world.
Recalling what makes them who they are is just as important as recalling what they've done, says Juliana Richardson. She's the group's founder and executive director, who explained to CBS This Morning in June her goal for this project.
I want the African-American child to understand their roots, but I also want mainstream America to understand the contributions of black people to this country.
Watch just a few of these interviews and you realize it's just as much about the personal as it is the professional.
I remember that my father fell in love with my mother at first sight.
Richardson, reached by phone in Chicago, said Smith's story was also about his accomplishments outside the office.
When you look at Mark Smith, not only is he an electrical engineer, but he was also an Olympic fencer.
Smith competed on the 1980 U.S. Olympic fencing team, won 2 fencing national championships, and then made the 1984 Olympic team, competing in Los Angeles.
You were kind of very special. Everywhere you went, people would recognize that you were in the Olympics, and you received an awful lot of attention.
Smith and the thousands of other interviews will also receive some attention as they will be permanently saved in the Library of Congress. For Smith, he's just glad he's now part of history.
You know, going down memory lane is really a lot of fun, and you don't do it unless there's some reason to do it.